Okay, here we go. Starting a new maamer. This one is called Tanu Rabbanan Mitzvas Ner Chanukah. It's basically what our sages taught about the mitzvah of Chanukah candles. So the Gemara says these things about Chanukah. We see what they are in the literal sense of it, but now that we know all the way the literal is and the way that it works in this physical world, now let's take it and give it a whole new look to the spiritual dimension. Let's find out what was really going on in the spiritual sense of Chanukah. And that's going to be like the bulk of what the maamer is. Now we come back to seeing why we're doing the things we're doing in the physical world, because they are a reflection of what's going on in the spiritual realms. That's kind of like a general idea that anything that happens in the physical world is a spiritual counterpart for it. I was learning a different maamer that was talking about how when you read the 5 books of the Torah, let's say, you're learning them, so all that happened in the literal sense. They went out of Egypt, they did this, that, whatever. But there's more layers to it, and there's a much higher layer, like a higher spiritual layer that's going on. There's a spiritual correspondence that's going on to everything that we're learning about in the regular world. So we talk about any of the stories that you see in the Torah, there's some spiritual thing that went on in the higher spiritual realms that occurred. A maamer, that it's the Chassidic discourse, it's a little bit deeper than what we call like a sicha, just kind of like a talk, because it digs much deeper into kind of like the spiritual realms. As you've sort of seen already, right? You've kind of gotten that idea so far. So what we're going to do for this one, we don't have all, but we have most of the way that Chanukah is spoken about in the Gemara. So we're going to look at all of them, even though it might get a little bit dense, like it might get a little bit much in the beginning, but a lot of the questions and certain things that are kind of said in the maamer, they reference as if we know what the Gemara says. So we'll look through it. Most of this is actually only one page of the Gemara. You think like, oh, Chanukah with all the whatever, there's probably like books and books on it. So there are, but they're not. The Gemara is like a page where most of the stuff about Chanukah is. The maamer itself does not start with this. The maamer starts somewhere in the middle of what we have. But I went back and pulled in from a little bit before because it will give us context for certain things. Here we go. So first of all, you see here again, this maamer was said by the Rebbe, our Rebbe, that was said by our Rebbe. In 1977, you see it's the same year as the other one that we did. Look at what the Gemara says and understand what's really going on here. If you'll see the way the translation goes, and this, most of us, I copy paste from Chabad.org. You can get pages of the Gemara there. The bold part is the actual translation, and then the part that's not in bold is what they fill instead of makes sense. The Hebrew to English translation, it doesn't work exactly. What does the Gemara say? The way that it starts talking about Chanukah, like what we're seeing here on this page, the first thing we think about Chanukah, is it talks about what happens if the candle goes out. Do you need to rekindle the candle? And is it true that if the Chanukah light is extinguished, one is not bound to attend to it? As in, do you need to relight it or not? Right? What do we have to do about it if a Chanukah candle goes out? The Gemara has a contradiction that it raises. My love, di chavsa hadar madlek la. Exclamation point. There's probably not an exclamation point in the actual Gemara. So they kind of add in, there's no punctuation there. You don't see any of this kind of stuff there. La di la adlek madlek binamin l'shura. Basically, here's the part that's going to be important. The Gemara raised a contradiction from what was taught in the Bright, as in what's the original verse, what's the original teaching that it's all being based upon. So the mitzvah of kindling the Chanukah lights is from sunset until traffic in the marketplace ceases. That's what it's called. Sunset, we know sunset is, but what does it mean traffic in the marketplace ceases? Like, what time? That's not on my watch. What time is this? So does that not mean that if the light is extinguished, he has to rekindle it if it doesn't remain lit for that duration? So let's say you light a candle after sunset and it goes out right away. And it's not the time when the traffic in the marketplace ceases. So do I need to relight the candle, right? That's kind of what the question is. So it says, no. The Gemara answers that no, the Brisa, as in like the original teaching, can be understood otherwise, that if one did not yet light at sunset, he may still light the Chanukah candles until traffic ceases. Alternative, one could say that this is referring to its measure. One must prepare a wick, and oil sufficient to burn from sunset until traffic ceases. He did so, the light is extinguished for, and he did not relight it. Short version is, the mitzvah of Chanukah, lighting the candles, is from when the sun starts to set, until traffic in the marketplace ceases. Does that mean if the light goes out during that time, do we not need to light it? The Gemara here doesn't give us a direct answer, but it just tells us that some people say it's actually talking about the measurement of it, as in just make sure when you originally light the candle, there has to be enough for it to burn for that set amount of time. Don't light a candle that's going to go out in 14 seconds, make sure that it's actually going to burn for a while. And you could see why you have Gemara, and then there's commentary on the Gemara, and then etc., etc. And then you end up with the Shulchan Aruch, which is the code of Jewish law. You can see why you need that, because we need these laws to be a little bit more explicit than what the Gemara is telling us. But the Gemara is going back and forth with these things. Now, part of what's going to be important is that this whole idea of sunset until the traffic in the marketplace ceases, we're going to get back to this. So this is one thing. Now, this is from the Gemara itself. It's actually going to return to it a little bit. It's just, what does it mean until traffic in the marketplace ceases? At kama, like, what time is that exactly? Where's that on the sundial? How many grains of sand need to slip through? Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana said. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. He said, Rabbi Yochanan said. Remember, everything was transmitted in oral law, so everyone's going to be quoting stuff in the name of the person they heard it from. They're going to be quoting their teachers, etc. Ad dechaya riglet determined. Until the traffic of the people of Tadmor, the Talmudai, ceases. What does it mean until the traffic ceases? Until the Talmudari were people who sold wood before we had electricity. The people who used to sell wood in the marketplace, they would be the last people in the marketplace, is what the Gemara is telling us. Because people would go home, and all of a sudden they might realize, like, wait a second, we don't have enough wood stocked up. Somebody run out quickly, go to the marketplace quickly, see if the wood sellers are still there so we can get more wood. So they would linger in the marketplace to wait. Oh, once everyone goes home, they'll check their wood stock to see. So this is the time frame that it gives us for lighting Hanukkah candles. Someone has to light later, of course they should, which also, again, you to go for the code of Jewish law here. These are not necessarily the final law of certain things. But as far as the Gemara is concerned, what they're transposing, what they're telling over of what's been discussed of all these teachings, that this is what we have. Sunset to the time when these people know the Talmudai would leave the marketplace. So this is one part. This actually comes at the end of the maamer, but we're putting it here because this is where it comes in the Gemara. It comes first. It's actually the first intro that we have. These two sections here are what the maamer is actually going to be based upon. This is what the maamer brings down, this part of the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan, the sages taught, Mitzvas Chanukah. What is the mitzvah of Chanukah? Ner ishuveso. There needs to be one candle for one person. So usually it would be the head of the household to just light a candle. That's what the actual mitzvah of Chanukah is. Now, you might notice that that's not how we celebrate Hanukkah today. There's not one candle every day. That's not how we do it. One candle, as in day one, one candle. Day two, one candle. That's not how we celebrate Hanukkah today. What does it tell us about Mahadran? Those who want to go, Mahadran is if you want to go up a level. Remember, we did that last time. Keder mitzvah, if you want to beautify the mitzvah. Mahadran is not just a kosher food company. Those who want to do the mitzvah in a more glorified way, in a more beautiful way, how would they do that? Here the translate is more meticulous. Those are more particular about the mitzvah. Every person gets a candle. This is the way that the Gemara is originally telling us the way Hanukkah candles have to be. The way the mitzvah is that every day you need to light one candle, and the head of the household can light the one candle for everybody. But those who want to be more meticulous about the mitzvah, then everybody in the household gets their own candle. V'amahadrin mina mahadrin. If you want to be even more meticulous, like even more above that, we're going to get the extra credit plus. Beis Shammai, Omer, Beis Shammai says, Yom Rishon Madlik Shmona. The first day you're supposed to light 8. Mekan be'ach poches v'holech. From there you light one less each day. So have you heard of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel before? There were two great sages. They were colleagues, peers. Hillel was usually known for being more lenient about things because he came from a side of chesed and kindness. Shammai was known for being stricter about things because he came from a side of gvura, self-discipline and strength. Remember? Look at how we're bringing all this kind of stuff here. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, some of the first recorded, I guess you could kind of say like disagreements. Not that nobody ever disagreed until then, but some of the more major disagreements where we start seeing the law could go either way and it wasn't as clear of like everyone argue and then come to conclusion. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is where we first start to see it. And a lot of that just has to do with the times they're living in. So the point is, Beis Shammai says, if you want to be even the most meticulous of all, it's not going to be the head of the household lighting a candle. It's not going to be each person lighting one candle. You're going to light 8 candles the first day. The second day, you're going to light 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All and then going down. Beis Hillel Omer, what does Beis Hillel says? Yom Rishon Madlik Achas. The first day you light 1. Mekan be'elach mosav v'holech. From there, you add and you increase. As in the second day is 2, the third day is 3. Sound familiar? So who do we follow? We follow Beis Hillel. We light Hanukkah candles today. And anybody who lights the menorah like that, not just a candle a day, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're doing mahadrin mina mahadrin. They're doing like the most meticulous form of keeping the mitzvah, which is basically the way everybody keeps Hanukkah today. Which is kind of cool when you think about it like that. Because we're not necessarily so strict when it comes to other things. Kosher, everyone's got their own level. Or like certain holiday, Pesach, everyone's got their own level. But also when it comes to Hanukkah, we're all keeping it like the highest level. This is where the Maamar starts talking about this whole thing about lighting the menorah. How many lights are we supposed to kindle? Why does Shammai goes from up to down and Hillel's going from down to up? Just for a short version, what Beis Shammai is doing by doing 8 to 1 is that he's lighting the candles about the days that are yet to come. So on the first day, we've got 8 days of Hanukkah. Second day, there's 7 days of Hanukkah. The third, there's 6 days of Hanukkah. He's lighting actually according to the potential. As in, we've got 8 more days of Hanukkah, like yay, and we've got like 7 more days of Hanukkah, right? This is what we got left to achieve, kind of. Beis Hillel lights it according to the days that have been. Today we've got day 1. So day 1, we're going to do day 1. Day 2, there's been 2 days of Hanukkah. Day 3, so what they do, they're lighting according to what the actual is. This is the way it actually is versus what the potential is. They actually say that in times of Mashiach, we're going to switch and we're going to light according to Beis Shammai. This is one approach that they're taking to why they're disagreeing in the way that you light the menorah. On this page of Shabbos 21b, it says, Amar Ula. Ula said, Pliga batre Amarai b'ma'arva. There are 2 Amarim in the West. Basically, there was a dispute about this. Rabbi Yossi bar Rav and Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida, okay, names. Chadamar Tamad Devei Shammai Keneged Yamim Menachnasim, Tamad Devei Sela Keneged Yamim Hayotzin. One said the reason for Beis Shammai is that the number of lights correspond to the incoming days, future, and the other one is the ones that are days that have passed already. This is where we have to focus right now. In the Maamar, we have the whole part about we have to light the candles. It kind of skipped that part a little bit about Ula said, and then it switched right away to tell us about the reasoning that we're going to focus on. When we see this reasoning about that Beis Shammai goes according to the incoming days, like the potential, versus Beis Hillel doing according to the days that have been already, that face value seems to make a lot of sense about why they disagree about how to light candles. But then there's here, this Ula is telling us that there are actually disagreements about what the reasoning was behind it. The second reasoning is the one that we have questions on. You can see we're going to have a bunch of questions on all this stuff. So what is it? Beis Shammai says, no. The reason why we have to do 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is because it corresponds to the bulls that were offered on Sukkot. Every holiday had different sacrifices. There were some standard ones for holidays, but every day there were sacrifices, Shabbos had sacrifices, etc. But the holidays themselves, each holiday has their set kind of sacrifices. So Sukkot was unique because for each day of Sukkot, aside from some of the other sacrifices, they offer these bulls as sacrifices. They started off with 13 and they worked their way down. So it went from 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Because 7 days of Sukkot, so this is the only holiday that we have this descending order of offering the bulls. As a side note, when you add up the numbers of 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, it adds up to 70. It says that the bulls of Sukkot represented the 70 parent nations of the world. It was referred to like the outer world of like the 70 nations of the world. And it was actually offered for their benefit. It's one thing that's spoken about with the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, that the nations don't realize what they kind of took away from themselves with that. These bulls that were offered on Sukkot, these sacrifices that were offered, were for them as well. By destroying the Beis HaMikdash, they took away those blessings that could come to them through the bulls of Sukkot. This is the reasoning they give that, you know why Beis Shammai says we have to go down 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Because on Sukkot, there were bulls that were offered, and that was 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay? Just makes sense to you? Because we already have a question here. Why does Hillel say, no, we have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Because D'malam b'kodesh. And when it comes to matters of sanctity, you go up, you don't go down. When it comes to holiness, you're supposed to always increase in holiness and not decrease in holiness. That's part of the reason, like, let's say if someone wants to take upon themselves to do something extra in a mitzvah. So either you say, okay, I'm going to do it for a set amount of time. I'm going to do this for the next 3 months or whatever. Or if you just say, oh, I'm going to take it on. I don't say you're kind of stuck with it, but you're kind of stuck with it in the sense that once you take it on upon yourself, you've reached kind of this new level. And if you would just stop doing it, you kind of lower yourself. We're not talking like specifically about transgression or something. It's just like if you take upon yourself, I'm going to be a little bit extra careful in something, and you don't have a time frame for it, then it's considered you are going down a level when you don't do that anymore. Kind of like the idea of why do we take on a minhag when a custom kind of becomes like a law? Because once you've added to holiness, we don't want to decrease in holiness. This is the reasoning they give for why Hillel says, no, you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because in matters of holiness, we should always add. We should always increase. Okay, well, this makes sense. 2 more parts of the Gemara, and then we can go to all the questions. But so far, you see, like, well, we're laying the groundwork here for this stuff. Tanu Rabbanan, the sages teach, Ner Chanukah Mitzvah lanicha al Pesach beisam b'chutz im hayadar b'aliyah nicha b'chalon smuch l'rishos harabim v'shas tzkana minicha al shulchano v'dayo. Sages taught in a Braita, so we had an earlier teaching, that it's a mitzvah to put the Chanukah lamp at the entrance to one's house on the outside. This is also going to be important. Where do you put the menorah? It's going to be on the outside. I think if I was in Yerushalayim in Hanukkah time, people have like in the walls of their house, they create these little kind of like glass cases and they light the menorah inside the glass case of their wall. That way their menorah is actually placed on the outside of their house, but you're not just going to put it out in the street. It's not exactly safe. You want to protect it from the winds. So they have these kind of like these nooks that they create inside the wall that you could light the menorah inside of it. They're following what the Gemara says that you're supposed to light it outside. The whole thing with the Hanukkah menorah, this is something that the Rebbe was very big with. You have to publicize the miracle. We want people to know about it. That's why the menorah is on the car. You don't see us at Rosh Hashanah time driving with the ram's head on the car. Hanukkah light, you see, we're supposed to put it outside the house. Now, if he lives upstairs, you can put it out the window, adjacent to public domain. And in time of danger, as in when decrees were issued to prohibit lighting the candles, he puts it on the table and that fulfills the obligation. I think most people, usually they put it at an out-facing window when they light the menorah. So like if you'll drive by LA, you'll see all these not big windows are open, like those front windows are all, they've moved aside the curtains and the menorahs are sitting there. So this is usually what people do, they put it by a window. Chabad customers actually put it by a doorway. Because what we do is you have the mezuzah on one side, you have the menorah on the other side, and you're kind of framing yourself with mitzvahs in that kind of way. So we have the custom of putting it at a doorway. Okay, this is another thing. Just to quickly recap, we have lighting the candles from sunset until the Tamar Day, go home from the marketplace. We have how many candles are we supposed to light? And we have the opinions of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Do we light up? Do we light down? We say, the reason why there's a difference in opinion because one's connecting to the bowls of Sukkot and the other says, no, in holiness we have to always add. Now we have something else about where's the Hanukkah menorah placed. So it's supposed to be placed, outside so that all should see it. And now we have the last point. This is actually kind of like the famous line, my Hanukkah. Here the Gemara is going to tell us what's Hanukkah. Good question, huh? You're all celebrating this holiday. Let's talk about what it is. My Chanukah. What's Chanukah? Tanu Rabbanan, what do they say? B'chafei b'kislev, 25th day of Kislev, Yom Chanukah Tamanya. Days of Chanukah already. So from the 25th of Kislev, we have 8 days of Chanukah. You're not supposed to eulogize and you don't fast on them. Which means we know that this is a holiday. You're not allowed to fast on Shabbos. Because Shabbos is a holiday, it's not a time to be afflicting yourself. There's times that someone passes away, let's say in the middle of Pesach or something like that. It's not Chag, but it's the Chol Hamoed is still like a Chag. Eulogies are not said because eulogies are something of sadness. So it's not a time, the holiday supersedes this. The extra steps of mourning. That's why also there's a whole thing about when Shiva starts, when a holiday comes in between. And anyways, so now we know. From the 25th of Kislev, we have 8 days of Hanukkah. We still do that today. There's no different opinion on that. But what happened? Why do we celebrate Hanukkah? When the Greeks came into the sanctuary, when they came into the base of Mikdash, they desecrated all the oil that was in the sanctuary. When the Hasmonean, so in the Hashmonai dynasty, when they were victorious over them, the whole Maccabees, the Hashmonai dynasty. They searched all over, they came back into the base of Mikdash. Victory, let's light the menorah. And they're looking all over and they couldn't find any oil because it had all been defiled. They found the one cruse of oil. So there was only one that had the seal of the Kohen Gadol on it. There's only one that had the seal of the high priest to say, oh, this is kosher oil. What happened? Everyone knows. Inside, there's only enough oil for 1 day. We are learning the source of Hanukkah right now, as in the source of what the holiday is all about. There's a miracle occurred, and from the one cruise that only had enough, it lasted for 8 days. The sages decided the next year, they instituted this is going to be a holiday and we're going to sing Hallel. Hallel is the whole prayer of praise for God. It's going to be Thanksgiving, etc. This is what's decided. This is all Hanukkah that it talks about. Again, there's a few parts that's not here. We have the idea, when does Hanukkah candles have to be lit? Sunset till the Tamri, the wood people. Which order are we supposed to light in? Well, do we light up or down? And then Beis Shammai's opinion, the bowls of Sukkot, and Beis Hillel's opinion we have to increase in matters of holiness. We're ready to light the menorah. Where are we going to light it? You have to try to put it outside, put it near a window, etc. While we're on the topic, what's Hanukkah? Why do we have Hanukkah? So we have Hanukkah because when the Greeks came into the sanctuary, they destroyed all the oil that was in the sanctuary. When the Hashmonaim came, the Maccabees, etc., they came, they were victorious. They looked high and low, and all they found was a small little cruse of oil that still had the seal of the Kohen Gadol on it, and it was only enough to last for 1 day, and they lit it and it lasted for 8 days. The next year they decided, we have to have a Hanukkah party. They instituted the holiday after that. Now, we're going to get to our questions now, but there's so many elements that's going on here. We see like, oh, there's a simple story, but we're going to see for the questions that it's not such a simple story. We have historically what occurred as far as going into the base of Mikdash and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when we understand the deeper spiritual war that actually occurred, it wasn't just this physical war between the mighty Greek army and the little Maccabee band of Maccabees. There was something much deeper that affected much more all the spiritual realms that actually occurred in this whole miracle of Hanukkah. Part of why Hanukkah became an enduring holiday. God performed many miracles for us. There were so many battles that were fought. But this one in particular became a holiday because there's something deeper than just a battle between Hashmonaim and the Greeks. And what it is something that resounds even now in our generation today. And this is kind of what we're going to discover by looking deeper into all the things that we've spoken about. Just to make a point, the 2 holidays that the rabbis instituted, we have a bunch of holidays from Hashem, and that's from the Torah directly. But there are 2 holidays that the rabbis instituted that we still celebrate today. It's Purim and Hanukkah. Purim, Haman wanted to wipe out the Jewish people. That was a physical war that occurred. Of course, there's spiritual, like as we just said, there's a lot of spiritual things. But when we look at what the threat was, the threat of this world was that they wanted to physically wipe them out. Man, woman, and child in known civilization. Hanukkah, they weren't trying to wipe out the Jewish people. What they were trying to wipe out was the Jewish way of life. They were trying to wipe out Judaism. It was a spiritual war that was occurring. And we see that in the way we celebrate today. The whole thing with the menorah is actually connected and it represents all that. Now that we have that figured out, let's look for a second at our questions. So these are the questions that the whole maamer is going to be based on. We'll give a short answer for it, but we're not going to get it, obviously, to the whole meat of it now. Question number 1, what's the connection between Hanukkah and the bowls of Sukkot? Beis Shammai is like, oh, we have to do 8 days of Hanukkah because of Sukkot is an 8-day holiday and we offer bowls on Sukkot. Like, really? Well, how did you get that connection? Some say that both are 8-day holidays. And 8 represents a level that's beyond Hishtalshalut. Hishtalshalut means the chain of descent, like a chain of creation. Part of a link in a chain is that each link is connected to what's above it and what's below it because it's interlocking. Just general idea, but remember how we've spoken about before, like the different worlds, and there's a whole descent to creation, and the contraction of the light, and all that kind of stuff. So it's called the Hishtalshalut. It's called the Seder Hishtalshalut. It's like a link in the chain of creation. Also with that, the reason why it talks about what that has to do with the 8-day holiday is because there's this idea in Judaism that 7 represents the natural order of things. You see that because we have 7 days of the week. God created the world in 7 days, which means that 8 is now the step that you're going beyond the natural order. There's something to the 7 that represents like a cycle. Well, we say Shemitahs like that. So there's a lot of 7s that represent the natural order of things. 8 is considered going a step above. So 8 is kind of representative. It's kind of indicative of now we're entering into infinity because we've gone beyond the natural order thing. Okay, so that's what they're saying. Look, Chanukah and Sukkot are both 8-day holidays. It connects to going beyond the natural order of things. That's fine, but now we have a very deep question that's going to be asked here, is that there has to be something that connects Chanukah and Sukkot on its very high level that results in them being 8-day holidays. It's not, they're both 8-day holidays, so they have something in common. It's like, no. There's something in common at a much higher level that then results in them being 8-day holidays. We kind of took the question and turned it upside down. That's our first question that we have. Question number 1 is, what do Chanukah and Sukkot have in common that they both become 8-day holidays? As in, why is Beis Shammai making this connection between Chanukah and Sukkot? Question number 2, Chanukah menorah is supposed to celebrate the miracle that happened with the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. But why does the Chanukah menorah have 8 lamps when the one in the Beis HaMikdash had 7? The menorah in the Beis HaMikdash had 7 lamps. The menorah is described in the Torah. We can see exactly what it is. So if we're trying to say, there's a big miracle with the menorah that happened in the Beis HaMikdash, how did we end up with 8 lamps, not 7? This question goes on to the whole thing that we just did of my Chanukah. What's Chanukah? They didn't have enough, and they found a small cruise, and they went in. That's that part that we read in the Gemara, that last part that we read there. But if you really think about it, if there was enough oil to last for a day, well, that means that the miracle really was only 7 days. That first day of the oil lasting is not a miracle, because there was oil for 1 day. That's exactly what the Gemara told us. What some people say is that what they did is they only filled it up 1/8 of the way, and then in Meraxi it filled up all the way, and so it lasted. So it's kind of like an 8-day miracle. We're still not going to be totally satisfied with this response because we have to look at what the Gemara tells us plainly. They had a small cruise and there was enough for a day and it lasted 8 days. So sure, there might be other explanations here, but the Gemara is not telling us that. We still have a question about this. Why do we have an 8-branch menorah when the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash was 7 branches? Let's look at our next question, which kind of connects to our first question. It seems like it's a big stretch to connect the Chanukah lights to the Lulav Sukkos when they're not even the same service. What's their connection? It's not like Beis Shammai gave some sort of explanation of like the reason why we have to do 8, 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, something to do with the menorah and the Beis HaMikdash, etc. Instead, all of a sudden he's talking about bulls on Sukkos, which is one thing. Another thing about that, it's not even the same service. You're not comparing apples and apples. First of all, you had the altar, the Mizbeach, where they offered that was outside of the building. The menorah was inside of the building. One's kindling the fires and one's offering sacrifices and animals and stuff like that. They seem two totally different things that you're comparing right now. So it seems that there's no connection there. Of course, that's part of the Maamar is going to tell us that there is a connection that we're not seeing. This is one of the questions we have. Where did you get this connection from? Also, as a side thing, we know even today, the service of the sacrifice is not around today, but the light of the menorah still burns. When the Mishkan, tabernacle, if you know what a tabernacle is, when the Mishkan in the desert was being set up and they were inaugurating it, Aaron was kind of watching each of the princes of the tribes. Every day there was a different prince that came and offered a bunch of sacrifices. They all offered the same sacrifice. There was a unity element to it, but each one came from kind of like a different intention and different representation, even though it was the same thing, so it was like the same but different kind of thing. The tribe of Levi did not offer sacrifices because the tribe of Levi and the Kohanim, their job was to serve. You don't bring presents to your own housewarming, was kind of what it is. There's more explanation to that's a short. So Aaron's watching this and he kind of felt like, I would like to participate in this. I want to be part of this also. Hashem tells him, don't worry, your service is even greater than theirs is. What was Aaron's service that was very specific to the Kohen Gadol is that you get to kindle the lights of the menorah. These lights of the menorah will shine forever. We see that now. We're in exile. We don't have the Beis HaMikdash, but the lights of the menorah do shine forever because even in exile, we are lighting the menorah. So it's not just that, one's like the menorah and one's sacrifices. The sacrifices we don't have anymore. We don't have the Beis HaMikdash, but the menorah has endured. So it really seems like we're connecting two things that really don't seem to have anything in common. So that's question number 3. Question number 4 is, why is the Chanukah menorah lit from sunset and onward when the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash was kindled in the late afternoon? The late afternoon is Plaga Mincha. It's 1.25 hours before sunset. So the way that the Jewish time breaks down, they're like, when can you light Shabbos candles? When this, that, whatever. It's however many hours of daylight you have, you divide it into 12 blocks. So you can say, it's an hour, but it's not because in the winter, there's much less daylight. So those hour blocks are actually shorter. And in the summertime, you have more daylight. So those hour blocks, those 12 blocks become longer sections. So when you say it's 1.25 hours before sunset, it's 1.25 hour according to like the way that you break down the hour in the Jewish calendar. But the point is it's late afternoon. It's not sunset yet, basically. So again, we're going through this whole thing that we're going to light the menorah to commemorate the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, and we're not even lighting it at the same time. You see what the questions are. So just to give you the very punchline of everything, the entire point of the Chanukah lights is to illuminate the darkness. All the answers that we're going to have and everything that we studied and everything we're going to realize about why the Gemara instituted certain things, why this holiday is what it is, etc., 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 is because everything lends to this answer that the main point of the Chanukah lights is to illuminate the spiritual darkness that we live in. That was what the war that they fought was. It was a spiritual war. As in, of course, it was a physical war that went on, but it was a greater spiritual war that was fought. And that's why today we're still commemorating. Side note, it's kind of ironic because it's probably one of the most widely celebrated holidays besides for, like, I don't know, like Pesach. And the whole celebration of it is the celebration of the endurance of Judaism and spirituality. And you could have people, they have no outward connection in practice to Judaism, even though they're Jewish, and like they'll be very religious about Hanukkah. It's good, but it's like, please listen to the deeper message. It's all about preserving the heritage, it's all about connecting to Judaism. It's not just about fun, light, brightness stuff. So that's the whole point of the Hanukkah lights is to illuminate the darkness. The whole Maamar is going to get us to this punchline. And just to leave everybody off with a question, how do we know what's going on here? Because when you think about when the Greeks went into the Beis HaMikdash, what it describes to us, it doesn't tell us, oh, they looted the coffers. They had a lot of gold there. They had gold, silver, whatever. They had a bunch of animals there. There was a lot of stuff going on there. The only thing it tells us is that they defiled the oil in the Beis HaMikdash. So this is something for everybody to think about until next time. From everything that the Greeks did, why did they have to mess around with the oil? Anybody ever thought about that question before? What bothered them so much about the oil that they go and mess up the oil? That's where we're going to launch off next time.